Hello all, I am Dr. Tarun Arora and today we will discuss rights of LGBT, international perspectives. Friends, freedom from fear and want are the hallmark of civilized state in the post-World War era. Equality of status and equal protection of laws are certainly inalienably attached to a dignified life. No modern state can afford to deprive of the individuals from these highest aspirations of the humanity. Social contract theory, as documented after Second World War in the form of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, recognizes freedom, justice and peace as the foundations of the world. Furthermore, it unambiguously underscores the interrelationship among and between freedom of individuals, standards of life, social progress and peace. Individuality is a sense of life. Here we have to understand the denial of self-expression and natural identity is indispensable part of one's life. Sexual orientation is innate to human being and important attribute of one's personality and identity. The meaning of sexual orientation has been explained in Yogyakarta Principles as under. Sexual orientation is understood to refer to each person's capacity for profound emotional, affectional and sexual attraction to, and intimate and sexual relations with individuals of a different gender, the same gender or more than one gender. The expression gender identity has also been explained as under. Gender identity is understood to refer to each person's deeply felt internal and individual experience of gender, which may or may not correspond with the sex assigned at birth, including the person's sense of the body, which may involve a freely chosen modification of bodily appearance or function by medical, surgical or other means, and the other expressions of gender, including dress, speech and mannerisms. Friends, here we have to understand that human sexuality has two natural variants: homosexuality and bisexuality. Important thing to understand is that to be a homosexual or bisexual is not a matter of choice, as these are the natural traits. Therefore, LGBTs who are placed in the category of homosexual are at par with bisexual and equally entitled to complete autonomy over their innate choices and intimate desires concerning the personal domain of their life. They deserve equal freedom to choose their partners. In view of above, the forthcoming discussion deals with the rights of LGBTs under international law. The purpose of this discussion is to sensitize the stakeholders and beneficiaries that the LGBTs also have equal rights and they are a part of mainstream of any society. No compromise with their dignity is permissible under law, whether international or national. They equally hold their right to individuality, freedom, dignity and privacy. So, the question in this present scenario is whether homosexuality is still a social anathema. In this regard, let us have a look at the definition of homosexuality by Gregory M. Herrick. He defines homosexuality as under: it encompasses a variety of phenomena related to a same sex or sexual orientation. Although the definition of the term often focuses mainly on sexual acts and attractions between persons of same biological sex, homosexuality also refers to patterns of same sex, romantic and emotional bonding, identities and communities based on same sex desires and relationships, and the shared cultures created by those communities. In view of above, the discussion intends to underscore the inalienability of sexuality from right to privacy and dignity. The Committee on Homosexual Offences and Prostitution 1957 and its findings reveal that in the first half of 20th century, homosexuality was considered as a problem of psychopathology or developmental arrest. Benjamin J. Sadok, etc., and other authors have expressed their opinion in their comprehensive textbook of psychiatry that usually a child grows as a heterosexual adult, and homosexuality was the outcome of arrested development. Thus, homosexuality was treated as a disorder or mental illness which was meted out with social ostracism and revulsion. Gradually, with the development of scientific studies and research, homosexuality started to be labeled as a complex subject, but inherent normal and natural variant of human sexuality. An egalitarian society accommodates diversity of linguistics, culture and ideologies, liberal and conservative as well. The people of stereotypes mindset start moral policing and unnecessary interferes in the personal life of others. Compromising of dignity in such an atmosphere of constant exclusion turns society into open prison. Foucault sports a state of conscious and permanent visibility that assures the automatic functioning of power. Endorsing the effects of such a law in realities, Ryan Godman opines that private individuals also start exercising policing power to control LGBTs without any authorization by the state. Let us have a look at international perspectives on the rights of LGBT. The discussion on the rights of LGBTs and status thereof in international context can be made under following heads. First, we will have to look at Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Friends, Universal Declaration of Human Rights envisions dignity as an equal, inalienable right of all members of the human family. Article 1 spells out right to dignity to all as under. To quote, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in the spirit of brotherhood. Here, analysis of the language of Article 1 clearly reveals that in each human being, in whatever country one lives or visits, one enjoys freedom and equal rights. Their dignity is the most precious value. Therefore, it has been recognized at the first place not only in Article 1, but also primary of all rights in the preamble. The preamble to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights recognizes dignity as the foundation of all freedoms, justice and peace in the world. Libertarian approach adopted in 20th century certainly places individual at the central stage, and accordingly his dignity, his self-respect and self-esteem lies at the core of all the civilized societies. It is further coupled with certain basic freedoms, without which a life is worthless. Freedom of speech and expression, if interpreted in the light of freedom from fear and want, are inalienable aspects of one's dignity. Therefore, one is at liberty to express one's thoughts, opinion and ideas, as well as one's individuality, sexual orientation and choices. It further finds its support from next article, Article 2, which sets a benchmark for the state to ensure availability of rights and freedoms mentioned under this declaration, without any distinction on any ground, and these grounds also cover sex in its fold. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing or under any other limitation of sovereignty. Friends, the content of above article uses the term sex as a prohibited ground of distinction, making one distinction, any distinction, unlawful under international law. Article 3 further imposes an obligation on the states to ensure right to life, liberty and security of a person. Now, let us have a look at approach of World Health Organization towards rights of LGBT. With the passage of time, in context of personhood, public perception also divided into opposing homosexuality as immoral, against nature and favoring autonomy of sexual desires as personal. Ostracizing of sexuality is deprivation of personhood. Here, it would not be out of place to mention that the seeds of this conundrum of gap in thoughts lie in flexible and dynamic social political forces. These forces keep on changing very swiftly in comparison to the mindset of the people. Therefore, a non-receptive part of the society views changes in the social values, habits, lifestyles as negative and mutates stereotype mindset, while people with flexible and receptive mindset adapt easily. However, the World Health Organization has released the guidelines, namely the ICD-10 classification of mental and behavioral disorders, clinical descriptions and diagnostic guidelines 1992, by which it removed homosexuality from the list of disease in International Classification of Disease. Let us have a look at paradigm shift from the social morality towards individual freedom. The adoption of UDHR and rapidly changing societal values resulted into the need to revisit the legal frameworks in the light of individuals' right. It witnessed a paradigm shift, and attention of the liberal thinkers contributed in shifting the focus from societal morality to individual liberties. Therefore, the Wofned Committee report of 1957 highlighted misuse of anti-sodomy laws as a means of blackmailing homosexuals. The recommendations of this committee resulted into passing of Sexual Offences Act 1967. Additionally, the courts on the status of LGBT and their mainstreaming in United States, Canada, South Africa, United Kingdom, Philippines and other jurisdictions have also been active in curbing criminalization of homosexuality. These legal systems endorsed that choice to have intimate human relationship should be protected against social opprobrium and unfair intrusion by the state. In new millennium, the non-governmental organs working in the field of human rights also joined the movement to strengthen and fostering respect for the rights of LGBT. With the dawn of new millennium, the millennial generation, whom we usually consider those who are born between 1981 to 1996 and also known as Generation Y, and post-millennial generation born between 1996 onwards, Generation Z. These generations witnessed transition in each domain of life: social, economic, geographical, technological and so on. The revolution in information, communication and technology sector turned the whole globe into a single village, and a paradigm shift was noticed. Theories in each sphere of life underwent the different phases, resulting into diversity of opinions and multiplying the range of ideas. Life of individuals, whether personal, professional or social, was not immune from the effects of this rapid transition. Now, let us have a look at Yogyakarta Principles. Yogyakarta Principles 2006 and 2017, documented by a special group of international human rights experts to prepare framework concerning sexual orientation and gender identity, deserves a special mention here. In 2006, it was realized that many states impose gender-oriented norms, marginalizing the right to sexual orientation and choice of individuals either on the pretext of customs, societal values or law, which also result into violence, gender inequalities, denial of self-respect, intrusion upon privacy, etc. In order to address these problems, a distinguished group of human rights experts discussed, drafted and developed a set of principles concerning human right of sexual orientation and gender identity. These principles were presented in experts meeting at Gadjah Mada University in Yogyakarta, Indonesia from 6th to 9th November 2006, wherein the experts from 25 countries with diverse backgrounds and expertise adopted these principles. A sense of Yogyakarta Principles can be presented as under: rights of individuals. Yogyakarta Principles declare the entitlement of human rights irrespective of their sexual orientations and gender identities. Right to recognition as a person to all persons of diverse sexual orientation and gender identity. And third is the most important part of Yogyakarta Principles, which recognizes right to life, privacy, liberty, self-determination, dignity, freedom, livelihood, security, social security, housing, education, health and remedy in case of infringement of any of their basic human rights, etc. Yogyakarta Principles also impose certain obligations on the states. The states were placed under an obligation to repeal their criminal and other legal provisions prohibiting consensual sexual activity among people of the same sex who are over the age of consent. The states to take appropriate legislative and other measures and reshape their laws, organize sensitization and awareness program to eliminate the discriminatory attitudes or behaviors treating one or others inferior or superior to due to sexual orientation or gender identity. It specially mentions that user-friendly procedure should be developed to get their birth certificates, passports, electoral records and other documents as per their profound self-defined gender identity. The states are also placed under an obligation to take policy measures and ensuring the decision-making process is inclusive and adopt a pluralistic approach covering all aspects of human identity including sexual orientation and gender identity. Then Yogyakarta Principles 2017, also known as YP+10. These were adopted in 2017 to specify the obligations of the state on the application of international human rights in law concerning sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression and sex characteristics. The obligation of the states to exercise due diligence to address any kind of discriminatory treatment or violence or other harm inflicted by state or non-state actors. Besides, the states have also been urged to organize capacity building programs to create awareness among the common man, judicial, law enforcement and other public officials for ensuring sensitivity towards individuals of special identities. The purpose of these principles is basically to eliminate the social prejudices towards LGBTs and to ensure creation of healthy and congenial environment with minimal friction of interest. Therefore, the right to identity, bodily and mental integrity, freedom from criminalization and sanction arising out of persons' actual or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression or sexual characteristics have been recognized in Yogyakarta Principles 2017. The effect of all these developments at international forum cannot be overlooked. Presently, homosexuality has been decriminalized in 124 countries. The survey also mentioned that same-sex couples have been allowed to marry and enter into partnerships in total 24 and 28 countries respectively. Another group of nations have passed legislations to protect the interests of LGBTs against discrimination. The Supreme Court of India in the matter of Navtesh Singh has also taken these principles into account. Now, let us look at approach of Commonwealth towards rights of LGBT. The UK means United Kingdom of Great Britain, once exponent of criminalizing homosexuality as colonial power, itself passed a law to prohibit discriminatory treatment in employment, education, social protection and housing on grounds of sexual orientation. In 36th Commonwealth meeting in the year of 2018, it was discussed that homosexuality is still illegal and 9 nations prescribed maximum penalty of life imprisonment. To quote, "The UK stands ready to support any Commonwealth member wanting to reform outdated legislation that makes such discrimination possible." Unquote. The UK also ensured to extend support to Commonwealth members in bringing about legal reforms. Therefore, it would not be out of place to refer here about the historic regret by Theresa May, the then Prime Minister of United Kingdom, to quote, "Across the world, discriminatory laws made many years ago continue to affect lives of many people, criminalizing same-sex relations and failing to protect women and girls. I am all aware too that these laws were often put in place by my own country. They were wrong then and they are wrong now. As the UK's Prime Minister, I deeply regret both the fact that such laws were introduced and the legacy of discrimination, violence and even death that persists today." Unquote. So, there are 74 countries including India which criminalize same-sex sexual conduct till the year of 2017, and now these nations are passing through the transitional phase. Let us have a look at recent developments. In recent years, the Human Rights Committee of United Nations General Assembly has also been proactively addressing the issues of individual choices in context of sexual orientation. The United Nations General Assembly also adopted different resolutions concerning human rights, sexual orientation and gender identity in its 34th meeting, in its 42nd meeting and subsequent meetings, wherein it expressed grave concern at the acts of violence and discrimination against LGBT. It considered the report to revise national legal system to hold perpetrators accountable, to take protective measures against torture, cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment on the grounds of sexual orientation and gender identity, and it ensured uninterrupted asylum, repealing laws criminalizing homosexuality for engaging in consensual sexual conduct, and harmonize the age of consent for the heterosexual and homosexual conduct, ensure that criminal laws are not used to harass or detain people based on their sexuality or gender identity and expression, enact comprehensive anti-discrimination legislation covering prohibition on ground of sexual orientation, freedom of speech and expression of LGBTs, capacity building programs for sensitization for police, prison, border guards, immigration officials and legally recognize LGBTs and transgenders by Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights for Human Rights. Subsequently, in 2016, the Human Rights Commissioner reiterated its resolution and denounced the violence and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. To follow up the impact of resolutions by the member nations, the United Nations appointed independent expert on sexual orientation and gender identity for sensitizing and ensuring proper implementation of laws at national levels. The Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights issued a framework document, a must-read for government officials, parliamentarians, judges, officials of national human rights commissions and agencies, human rights defenders to understand fundamental human rights of LGBT and intersex people. The report of Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights highlighted that there are three types of constitutional scriptures wherein sexual orientation have been covered either directly or indirectly. These constitutions can be classified as under explicit constitutional guarantees. Friends, the Constitution of Bolivia, Ecuador, Portugal, South Africa, Sweden and Switzerland provides these guarantees. Then comes explicit guarantees, but in the provincial constitutions. Argentina, Brazil, British Virgin Island, Germany and Kosovo. Journal language on non-discrimination interpreted by the judiciary to treat LGBT community equal to others. These countries are Canada, Colombia, Hong Kong, China, India and Nepal. So, finally, to sum up, the upshot of aforesaid analysis is that all the societal and constitutional values have undergone a thorough transformation. It resulted into recognition of equal rights for all members of human family, irrespective of their gender identity and sexual orientation. Sexuality has been recognized as a basic innate of privacy, purely a personal domain. In the wake of dynamic social attitude, the mindset of the majority of the people around the world has changed and started treating LGBTs as a part of mainstream. Homosexuality is no more a stigma. It is not only a matter of personal choice, but also a natural trait which cannot be questioned by other individuals. The states are considered as paternal figure, treating all their citizens equal and extend equal treatment to every individual irrespective of any societal consideration towards any individual. Conjoint reading of Yogyakarta Principles 2006 and 2017 along with Universal Declaration of Human Rights and resolutions adopted by United Nations General Assembly makes it clear that LGBTs are equally entitled to human rights stated therein. The concept of inclusive governance bound the state to create such an atmosphere in their geopolitical jurisdiction to address the discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation. Finally, under international law, LGBTs have got recognition of their rights. I hope this discussion is useful for you and you will certainly avail the benefits from this discussion. Namaskar.